Good morning. My name is Bill Sullivan. I'm the Vice President for Denodo here in Washington, D.C., with responsibility for the federal government business. I have the privilege today of speaking with Justin Marsico, the Chief Data Officer for the U.S. federal government Bureau of Fiscal Service within the Department of Treasury. It's a particularly critical agency for both for the government and for our country. Justin, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on CDO Magazine discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here, Bill. It's a real privilege.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. So what do you do? That's a hot button. You reference ensuring data integrity. Do you have any approaches that you like to use that you think are successful in ensuring the integrity of the data that you're using there at Treasury and the Bureau of Fiscal Service?
Yeah, I mean, we have a whole host of different ways that we try to ensure that there's integrity in the data. Our data is largely data that we're collecting from agencies at any given amount of time. So agencies have their own financial systems, which they record transactions in, and then they report information to us on a regular cadence about like what's going on in those financial systems. We have that type of data. We also have data because we are the last step for most federal agencies in making payments or collecting revenue. We can actually see the cash in, cash out in our own systems. So basically what we do at the Fiscal Service is we try to take those types of information and put them together to get a picture of what the federal government is doing. But the key point to answer your question about data integrity is when we're collecting data from agencies, we need to be excruciatingly clear about what the rules are for the data elements, and to have checks in place, validation rules or edits that let those agencies know if there's a problem with what they're submitting, so that they can address it before it ends up in our system causing other issues. So that's like one thing, just being very clear, or two things, being very clear with what the rules are, well documented, making sure that we have good validations in place. And then I would say the third thing that I'll say, and last, even though there's many more I could say, is having active relationships and communities with all of the people who send us information is really important. Agency has its own unique circumstance. You can imagine the difference between an agency like the Air Force or the State Department and the Department of Agriculture. There's a lot of diversity in terms of like the mission and the way that that agencies are going about executing that. And so bringing all those people together on a regular basis and talking to them about their data, about their financial information is key, so that we can understand where we need to be collecting more information, collecting fewer data elements if that's necessary, deriving things from a different source, or changing what our rules are so that we all get to an outcome that we can stand behind.
Perfect. That's fascinating. It's a gigantic integration issue. I know you can't endorse any products. I'm just curious if you wanted to highlight any particular technologies. I'm sure each of the agencies with whom you interact all have their own cloud instantiations. You probably have your own. Any technologies you'd like to highlight that either is particularly interesting or critical to you, or that you're looking at adopting in the future?
We do use a lot of technology to make all of this happen, just across the landscape of all of the things that I was just talking about. I'll talk about a project that we're doing internally to kind of reduce the scope to a more manageable amount of technology to talk about. One of the projects I've been working on over the last year is trying to take data that we have internally, just on our own operations, to make it ready for decision-making for our own leaders. So we've been trying to bring that data together to make it easier to analyze and to research. And we've been building a data lakehouse environment using AWS, and some of the native tools that are available there, as well as Databricks as our data engine. Inside of those environments, we're also leveraging Python and SQL to build our data and to aggregate it and to start doing our analysis. And of course, I can't end without saying that having a dashboard delivery mechanism is also really critical because that's how people actually that's how executives interact with data, and making sure that we understand how to build effective dashboards, have the right amount of information that are updated, that are resilient, is really important to us as well.
And oh, by the way, that highlights the importance of your mission within the agency, right? It's fine to have the data. It's fine to be able to give the data. It's critical to be able to give the data to the non-technical executive in a form and fashion in which A, they trust it, and B, they find it useful. Pretty correct summation. Yeah, that's the technology's goal. Yeah, sounds like so. I hadn't realized the integration across multiple agencies. The as you put it well, the all of government approach that hadn't occurred to me prior to the discussion. So, thank you for pointing that out. It sounds like a gigantic integration challenge. You touched on when you were discussing earlier. You touched on the importance of the human relationship between both with executives within your agency as well as across government and fostering ongoing communications. On that, pivoting on that point, how do you find the human capital that you need to support a rapidly changing, highly complex environment like that? How do you find them? How do you attract and retain them?
It's really difficult. I mean, I'm not trying to, I don't want to like oversell this, but getting really good people is a challenge, and it's something that takes up a lot of my time, like both in terms of like strategizing about how to do it and actually like operationalizing like the actual hiring of the people, talking to people, socializing with potential candidates, trying to get people interested in the federal government. So it's not always easy. We don't have, in all cases, the most competitive salaries with the private sector, especially in some of the more technical fields. But what we can offer is really exciting mission and the ability to do a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So one of the strategies that I have for trying to get good people in there is, this is going to sound kind of obvious, but just making sure that we have killer products. So when people go and see what we produce online, we have public products and products that we consume internally, but for our public products, when people go and see those, I want them to think like, wow, that's amazing. Who are these people? Like, how can I think about getting a job and working for them? So we have a website called usaspending.gov where we publish information on how the U.S. government spends money on contracts, for example. That's all there, on grants, on loans. And we want to really make that experience of getting that data a good experience for people, so that they can understand the federal government. But also in my list of reasons is so people are interested in this as a place to work. And honestly, another thing that I would recommend to anyone who's listening to this is that is just getting out there and doing things like this, like talking to you, is a way to kind of help promote the brand of the place that you're working for. I remember being at a conference a year or so ago, and I came off, I was like getting ready to go and do a panel, and somebody saw my badge and they said, it said, Bureau of the Fiscal Service. And they said, oh, I feel like I've heard of the Fiscal Service, and I feel like you guys are doing a lot of cool things there. And I was like, that is why I'm here, so that you think that, and you think this is a good place. So that's part of it. is just making sure that when people see what we are producing, they are thinking like, this is an interesting place, has a
Hmm.
good mission, they produce really good work.
In speaking with other government leaders, I know some of them have done a lot of work reaching out directly to the colleges and some all the way down to high school, trying to find folks, that would consider a career in their area. I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, somebody with a background in data analytics in the college level and or a CPA or accounting, it would be a fantastic place to start, or even a mid career where you're blending both the accounting and the analytics. So is that a fair estimation? Am I capturing what you might need well?
Yeah, absolutely. We do hire a lot of accountants. There are a lot of people with accounting backgrounds who work at Treasury and at the Fiscal Service. And we also are trying to start hiring more people with data science backgrounds. I've been doing this long enough where when I started, like having a degree in data science like wasn't a thing. So
Right.
what we're used to doing is looking for people who have, I guess for lack of a better term, like a diversity of different experiences. Like we'll hire people who have a stats background or an econ background or other like quantitative social science background or computer science or accounting, and just try to like put the pieces together. But now people are going to school and getting degrees in analytics and data science. So that's like a great skill set to come to the table with, obviously, as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you got a multivariate problem, between the accounting, integration of all of government, being able to handle the relationship side that, frankly, is the secret sauce. And then you need some serious people because what you do is a very critical function for government. So finding the people, attracting them, motivating them, retaining them is critical. And thank you for taking your time, and our best wishes from CDO Magazine.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill.